appears that Trump's pick to lead the National Institutes of Health is backing a new petition to pause all mRNA vaccines, including the COVID vaccine. Now, this pause could end with a total suspension of the COVID vaccine for all age groups. It could happen. Dr. Bhattacharya, Dr. Jay Bhattacharya, frequent guest on this show, much like Kennedy, wants to examine some very serious questions about vaccine injuries and vaccine deaths over the last few years. Our current Vice President, J.D. Vance, while campaigning, told a story about that the sickest that he's been in the last 15 years by far was when he took the COVID vaccine. He then discussed how odd it is that people are not allowed to talk about things like this. Elon Musk saw that clip of JD this morning on Joe Rogan and responded on X, writing, "I had a similar experience. COVID itself was nothing. I got the OG Wuhan strain before vaccines were out. JJ vaccine hurt my arm, but otherwise nothing. But the mRNA booster hit extremely hard. Massive chest pain, felt like I got hit by a truck, almost went to the hospital." That said, Elon continues, synthetic mRNA has a lot of potential to cure cancer and other diseases. Research should continue, but there seems to be an appetite to check these things out and make sure that everything's okay. And Senator Ron Johnson joins us now. Sir, good to have you on. Your thoughts on a potentially a pause here from the incoming head of NIH?
I think the mRNA should have been paused a long time ago, years ago. On VAERS, if you just take a look at the vaccine adverse event reporting system, compare all the adverse events reported since the VAERS was established more than 26 years ago. And they don't even come close to the number of adverse events reported for the COVID injection. Worldwide, we have over 37,000 deaths in conjunction with the COVID injection. 24% of those are occurring on the day of injection or within 1 or 2 days of injection. When we had the swine flu vaccine, we had about 400 or 500 cases of Guillain-Barré disease and a couple dozen deaths, and that vaccine was pulled from the market. So I don't know what the disparity was. I don't know what level of corruption has caused this injection to continue when people have these very strong safety signals. I think the federal health agencies have been completely opaque about what they knew when they knew it. We're trying to uncover that right now with the RFK Jr.'s radical transparency that he's promising us under HHS. But there was no way I was ever going to get that injection after I had talked to some experts in terms of what that thing was. It's not a vaccine. It turns your cells into factories for something that is toxic to the body. It certainly didn't surprise me. It should surprise no one that if enough of that injection accumulates in organs like the heart, the liver, the kidneys, the ovaries, turning those cells into manufacture of something toxic to the body. The body attacks things that aren't it, that are toxic to it. That when the body attacks it, it causes inflammation. That's what myocarditis is. I mean, I'm not a doctor, not a medical researcher. This was obvious concern to me that it wasn't concerning people like Anthony Fauci and Francis Collins and our CDC director is beyond me. But hopefully the new crew is going to pay attention to this. And again, I don't disagree.
Right.
mRNA could be a fabulous technology, but maybe not for a mass vaccination campaign, maybe for targeted relief to somebody who's going to die from cancer anyway.
Yeah, that's a good point. The CEO of Pfizer was on CNBC yesterday responding to a question from the host on vaccine liability protection. Take a listen to this.
The vaccine makers like yourself largely shielded from liability. If the products are safe and effective, what is the need to continue to shield, to have these liability shields, and what happens if those shields are changed or go away completely?
If the product is not safe and effective, we'll never get approval from FDA.
He went on to say that anybody can link an injury to a vaccine, which is why he says that this protection is needed. But to talk about that, and just the fact that they don't have to tell us what's in these vaccines for such a long period of time, too. They certainly don't do a lot to ease skepticism, do they?
Well, there obviously was concern back in 1986 when they passed the law that it led to a complete liability protection on vaccines. We weren't going to have any vaccine manufacturers, and I think that's a concern. It was a legitimate concern back then. You didn't have to alleviate all liability, though. You didn't have to provide complete liability protection. The result of that is vaccine manufacturers they just continue to roll out more and more products. They don't have to worry about that risk. And consumers who get hurt, and by the way, in that law, they concede that vaccine injuries are unavoidable. They are real. They happen. They say they're rare. They often claim they're mild, but I wouldn't consider death or permanent disability as mild. So we need to have an honest assessment of these.
What would you
need integrity to science?
Yeah. Well, what would you say to somebody that listens to this conversation right now and says that that this conversation will promote vaccine hesitancy, that this will lead people to not get vaccinated? You know, they talk about, there's a lot of people talking about Texas right now and how we're seeing, I think measles is popping up again. There's a big fear there of that conversations like this are dangerous, that we shouldn't be allowed to have this conversation, which is the way a lot of people have felt for the last few years.
The fact that our federal health agencies lied repeatedly to us about these COVID injections, that is what has caused vaccine hesitancy. The fact that they have their visa system, they wouldn't release those results other than through a court order under FOIA, show that 24% of people who got of 10 million people volunteered for this system, 24% had some impact on their daily life. Couldn't go to school, couldn't go to work. 7 or 8% had to seek medical care. They wouldn't release that. They've lied to us. They are the ones that created the vaccine hesitancy because they've not been truthful to the American public.
Senator Ron Johnson, good to see you, sir. Thank you.
Have a good night.